G'day Internet, welcome to Stick Ninja's Devlog episode 8. My name is Andrew Russell, and if I look slightly less purple this week, it's because I've figured out how to set the white balance on my camera. Now, in my last episode I talked about how my computer exploded, and finally I've been able to get back to working on Stick Ninjas, so this week I've been working on the networking again. So you might recall where we left off. I'd made a neat little program that would simulate out the game for a few hundred frames, and then graph the result of that. And I could adjust the inputs to that simulation and it would immediately graph the result of that simulation in the game, and it was networked, so it showed both the client and the server's view of the world. So this week I've been working on that. The first thing I did was add a proper deterministic network simulation which supports packet loss and packet jitter, and so you can see the UI for that here. You can see on the top is the client's input packets going to the server, and the bottom is the server's snapshot packets going to the client. I can adjust the latency up or down globally, but I can also pick out individual packets and make them take longer or shorter amounts of time to get between the server and the client, or I can drop packets entirely. So this lets me test things like what happens if an important packet goes missing. Is the client able to still display a reasonable simulation? And then finally I can also load up some presets that just have some randomized jitter and packet loss of sort of increasing amounts of network quality loss. So using this I've been working on the interpolation and extrapolation that happens on the client to fill in the gaps when the server can't get information to the client. You might recall last week that I wasn't really doing any proper interpolation or extrapolation. And even on a network with no packet loss, the client was still sort of doing a very bad job of interpolating. Now if you look at this with no packet loss on the network, you can see that the client matches the server positions exactly. And then if I increase the amount of packet loss on the network by, say, loading some presets, you can see that the client does a pretty reasonable job of keeping up with where the server is telling it that it should be. And even on the ludicrously bad network setting, you can still see that it usually manages to keep up. The red line that you can see in these simulations is where the client's run out of data from the server and it's starting to have to extrapolate positions. And then as soon as a correct position comes down from the server, finally it will switch back from extrapolating to interpolating between positions from the server. And of course all the same network code also works in the game itself, so I can then switch to the live game and show you that. You can see that I've spent a little bit of time working on some new graphics. So you've got a little running stick man here. Look at him run back and forth and jump and so on. And now you can see if I turn on player trails that all of the clients are doing a pretty decent job of keeping up with the server. There's not stuttering around or anything. And so the other thing I've been working on is client-side prediction. So when you're making a network game, it's sort of you've got two conflicting goals. There's you want to keep the server authoritative so that no one can cheat, but also you want to have instant reactions to the player's input on the client. So those two things are sort of in conflict because of lag on the network. So to solve these issues, I do what is known as client-side prediction. So rather than waiting for the results to come down from the server, the client will predict what the server is going to do and do that locally. And then when the result finally does come in from the server, it'll correct its prediction. So it still matches up with what the server wants, but it's a little bit ahead in time because it doesn't have to wait for the network lag before it can act. So you can see that here in the live simulation. If I switch input to the slow network connection, you'll in fact see that while he jumps around, he's in fact in front of the server in time, and he's also in front of all the other clients because he's reacting instantly to the controls. Now you can't really see what the buttons I'm pressing, but you'll see if I move the mouse around that his weapon follows the mouse instantaneously and there's no delay. Now the client's predicted position is never going to match with the server perfectly, so when the corrections come in, the client will have to make adjustments. And rather than making those adjustments instantaneously, it will smooth them in so the player doesn't flicker around. So you can see the smoothing happening with this blue line, and I'll switch to the lossy network client as the input client, so that's more obvious. And so you can see the smoothing still needs a bit of work. So if the position gets corrected up or down in the middle of a jump, that correction will continue even when the player is standing on the ground, which causes him to sort of hover in the air or go underground for a bit. So that's something I still need to work on. And of course, this client-side correction also works in my little graphing tool, so I'll just show you that briefly. As you can see, it's not very accurate yet compared to the server position. I'm not sure it actually needs to be, but this does give you a pretty good look at where it's going underground. So I'll fix that eventually. So yes, that's everything that I have to show you this week. If you'd like to find out when Stick Ninjas becomes available for playable pre-order, you can sign up at stickninjas.com. And if you'd like to get a notification when these videos are posted, or any other about any other development news about Stick Ninjas, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can subscribe to my blog at andrewrussell.net, or you can follow me on Twitter at _AndrewRussell. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next week.